This video is going to focus on the last couple of elements of the nature of our business. To date we've been focusing on things such as profit and employment. Now we're going to focus on entrepreneurship and risk and the key role that entrepreneurship plays within an economy, as well as wealth and the relationship or potential relationship to quality of life. So what is entrepreneurship? We've been discussing this a bit in class, particularly when looking at innovation. But entrepreneurship is, as it says there on the screen, the ability and willingness to start, operate and assume the risk of a business venture in the hope of making a profit. And the reason, the background for this slide is Steve Jobs is clearly he's been one of the more successful entrepreneurs over recent times. He had an idea back in the early 80s and ran with it. But it probably wasn't until the iPod and the iPhone were invented where Apple really took off and his entrepreneurial skills came to the fore. But he definitely, and like others like Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Phil Knight, these sort of entrepreneurs, they had a real willingness to start their own business. They didn't really like working for other people. They had ideas and they had a belief in themselves, and they were willing to take risk as well. Sometimes, really willing to risk it all for the chance of success. And while that's beneficial to them, it also is hugely beneficial to the broader economy, and it brings many advantages to the economy. That point, the second point there is an important one, that entrepreneurs generally are risky and willing to take on risk because they have to be, because they're generally entering into untapped markets. They're coming up with new ideas that haven't been tested before or tried before from a business context, and that therefore means that they are inherently risky people and also risky businesses, at least to start with. Those risks could encompass just not getting paid, losing all or part of the money put into the business, and often an entrepreneur will go years without receiving any income. Often you hear about people saying, "Oh, this business is an overnight success that's taken 5 years to be successful." So those people have been believing in their idea and willing to forego income and trying to survive on very minimal income because they have such belief in their entrepreneurial skills and also of the ability of the business to succeed. This is something I found that an academic has put together back in, I think it was 2010, which is what he described as what a government should try to establish in terms of an entrepreneurial ecosystem. So establishing within an economy an ecosystem where entrepreneurial desire and skills is encouraged and is supported. I'll just very quickly run through what some of the characteristics are of this ecosystem, and the next slide refers to 6 key elements to entrepreneurship. Firstly, that the government at the top here, government policy should support entrepreneurs to a degree and provide an environment in which entrepreneurs feel willing to take that risk in an effort to bring a particular business idea to the market. Having said that, there should be a regulatory framework and infrastructure, so the rules and regulations around entrepreneurs, and also an element within that economy of the willingness of investors to fund and to finance entrepreneurial ideas. So some sort of incubation area like Silicon Valley is to a degree, but that's kind of formed naturally, where entrepreneurs can go and seek capital or money to fund their ideas. A government should make an effort to develop a culture of entrepreneurship, because with a culture of entrepreneurship that encourages more entrepreneurs to attempt to bring their business ideas to the market, but without that culture, there will be generally a lack of innovation, which relates to the last point we've had a look at under the nature of business. A system or an ecosystem where there are mentors, advisors and support systems, so where other successful entrepreneurs can give some feedback to new and aspiring entrepreneurs. Universities providing an avenue through which entrepreneurs can learn some craft and then talk to other potential future business owners, and that helps to establish that culture of innovation. Education and training, so ensuring that within an economy or within a country there are training opportunities and education opportunities for prospective entrepreneurs. And then also lastly, the ability or local and global markets, so the ability for an entrepreneur to be connected to their local market, but also to be connected globally. And that's something that DFAT here in Australia, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, seek to do is expose domestic entrepreneurs, so Australian entrepreneurs, with global opportunities. I'll let you read that. That's really an extension of what I've just been talking about, or actually a summary of what I've just been talking about in terms of the six key items that that same academic I was referring to before thought that should be present within an economy to encourage entrepreneurship. Okay, that's an activity we'll do in class. In terms of wealth, the more that is produced, the more wealth is generated within the Australian economy. So if we're moving aside from entrepreneurship and focusing on wealth is about has a direct correlation to gross domestic product, and the difference between wealth and GDP is really what's been added to the economy, and represents the profitability or the wealth that have been generated by businesses. The important thing is that wealth is redistributed, so that the wealth, i.e. the profitability of a business, is redistributed through income back to government in the form of taxation revenue, potentially to lenders as the business borrows to expand the business, to shareholders in the form of dividends, and back into the business itself in terms of retained profits and reinvesting that money back into the business to grow it further and to create more wealth. And there's then a link to quality of life, which refers to the overall well-being of an individual, and is a combination of the material and non-material benefits. So material, things like car, house, non-material, things that you can't touch, mental health, for example. Concerning businesses, consumers have become increasingly concerned about waste disposal, and that links to quality of life, and the environment's becoming a big one. Recycling, and also things like using solar energy to fuel businesses to further improve the quality of life of individuals. A lot of businesses, I mentioned this in class, have actually responded in relation to quality of life issues by being proactive in terms of the environment and putting in place practices within the business that aren't required by government, but the business thinks is important because it will improve the overall quality of life of its workers and of the citizens. So, like I said before, putting in place solar panels to power the business, which will then reduce CO2 emissions and will make it a better place to live, a better place to work because they're using clean energy, and people will generally have a better quality of life because they'll also feel better about themselves. Okay, and I'll leave things there.